Hello everyone in English 125, Mr. Lopez here with a video I wanted to make to highlight, I think, the defining characteristic, at least for our purposes, of poetry. And the thing that distinguishes poetry from prose, which is what many of us are used to writing. Prose paragraphs, essays, short stories, that sort of thing. So to sort of highlight the difference between poetry and prose, I copied the same poem. It's a poem titled When My Mother Died by a poet named Ali Black, twice on this Word document. One, the top part, this is the poem as it was published by Miss Black. And then the second part, this one right here, is the exact same poem, same language, same capitalization, same punctuation, but I removed the line breaks. And so you see without the broken lines, the poem tends to move horizontally, just like a paragraph you might write for an essay in English 111 or 112. And the only reason when we're reading it, we jump back to the left from the right-hand side of the paragraph is because the page ends. So you might read this first beginning couple sentences as, my friends don't come over to help me sort through my mother's things. The ashtrays, the bills, the navy blue suits. No one brings me a home-cooked meal, etc. So the poem without line breaks, when it's written as a prose paragraph, is a horizontal object. It pretty much moves from left to right. The only reason we are jumping back as a reader back to this left-hand side is because the page ends. A poem, as opposed to a prose paragraph, a poem is vertical. It moves from top to bottom of the page as opposed to left and right only. And so you can see the poem as it's crafted by the poet has these breaks in lines. Sometimes they have punctuation. They end on a natural pause like a period. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes the line break ends only because the poet decided to end the line here and spill it onto the next line. And so this right here, these line breaks, this is what makes a poem a poem. And it's something to get used to doing when you're writing poetry, especially if you've never written poems. So what you have, same thing at the beginning here, is something that sounds like this. My friends don't come over to help me sort through my mother's things. The ashtrays, the bills, the navy blue suits. No one brings me a home-cooked meal. I don't belong to a church, so there's no pastor stopping by to read scripture with me. And so if you listen, you can hear the difference between poetry, what I just read, and prose. Poetry reads, if you were going to describe it one way, you might say a little bit choppier. But another way to say it is it's more musical. We choose when to end our lines, so we choose the emphasis within each sentence. So the sentence here is 2 lines. My friends don't come over to help me sort through my mother's things. But what Miss Black wanted to do is she wanted to highlight this first unit, this line, by itself. My friends don't come over to help me. And so when I read it, and when you read your own poems, there's a slight pause. Depending on who's reading it, it could be more dramatic, but there's always some sort of pause in meaning, pause in sound, at the end of a line, even if there's no punctuation. So you can see, my friends don't come over to help me sort through my mother's things. When this is read as a prose sentence, my friends don't come over to help me sort through my mother's things. The focus is mainly on my friends not coming over to help me sort through my mother's things. Simply, right? It's just a simple sentence. When you break that sentence into lines, you get that. My friends don't come over to help me sort through my mother's things. You get the idea of the friends not coming over to help the speaker sort through the dead mother's possessions. But you also get, because of the unit of the line, you get this focus of helplessness, of being alone, of isolation. My friends don't come over to help me. There's my friends and there's me at the 2 poles of the line. You have the pause on me, this focus on that pronoun, me, isolated, alone at the end of a line. out in space in your ear as music. My friends don't come over to help me sort through my mother's things. And so you can see that you add that pause, you get a much more powerful sentence. You get the sense of the friends not coming over to sort through the things. You get the sense of aloneness with this me hanging out at the end of a line. You get the friends on one end, and you get the help me at the end. And you can see what this would do if you added that sort of emphasis repeatedly throughout what is otherwise a fairly brief paragraph. I mean, this is it without line breaks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-ish prose lines. Becomes a poem that's a lot longer because every time we have a line break, we get that added emphasis of the line. No one brings me a home cooked meal. Right? The obvious emphasis on no one brings me a home, this thing that was lost, part of which was lost when my mother died. No one brings me a home, as opposed to, in prose, no one brings me a home-cooked meal. So, lots of people, to end this video, lots of people ask me, Mr. Lopez, I've never done this before. I love writing short stories, I write graphic novels, but I've never done this before. Where do I start? And what I tell them is, write a paragraph. Describe something. Anything. Describe your little brother or sister. Describe your favorite stuffed animal. Describe your pet. Describe your house. Describe your neighbor. Describe your feelings. Describe your nose. Describe your earlobes. Describe your computer. Choose something to describe and write a paragraph. And then break it into lines. And when you're breaking it into lines, you're choosing the music of the poem. You're saying, here's what I want to write about. I wrote a paragraph about my mother dying. And how did we sort of parse the possessions? How did I cope with the feelings of her death? And then I said, what do I want to highlight? I want to highlight this feeling of aloneness. I'm going to break the line at me. I wanted to highlight the fact that you don't just lose a parent, you didn't just lose my mother, but I lost this sense of home. No one brings me a home. I wanted to really focus on this fact that I don't have other crutches that some people might. Social crutches, a group of friends, a church to belong to. I don't belong to a church. I want to highlight that at the end of a line. So there's no pastor stopping by to read scripture with me. Another line that leaves that me at the end of it. You can see at the end, look at this ending of the poem. This is one sentence as a grammatical unit broken into 5 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The poet says we should grieve with grace, and no one owes you anything, so I walked around the way my mother used to, head high, low-key alone. And so what Allie Black did was she had this sentence, and she wanted to end the poem with that sentence. And then she said, this is my poem, this is the music I want to create with the words. Where do I want to break the lines to create a music that highlights the feelings and the thoughts that I want to end on? And we end on the word grieve. We end on you. We end on around, walk around, and my mother used to, and then these 2 characteristics of the mother, who's now gone. Head high, low-key alone. This could have been broken anywhere. The poet says we should grieve through low-key alone. Show you what I mean. The poet says we should grieve with grace, and no one owes you anything, so I walk around the way my mother used to. Let's end it there. Head high, low-key, alone. You may have written that last sentence and said, I want to break it on should. This idea of potential. What should we do? The poet says we should grieve with grace, and no one owes you anything, so I walk. You wanted to highlight the idea that you're walking. You're doing something active to try to process the grief. Around the way my mother used to. Head high, low-key, alone. Again, ending with this here, low-key, alone. Low-key is kind of buried in the line, the way Allie Black wrote the poem, published the poem. But if you wrote it like this, head high, low key. You're highlighting the low key. It ends the line, low key, and then you get alone, isolated at the end. So I guess in short, how you break your paragraphs up, how you break your poems into lines is completely up to you. But just know, you can see from here, it's going to affect, one, the music of the poem. How does it sound when somebody pauses at your line breaks as opposed to some other set of line breaks? And then what the poem's about, essentially. What is it highlighting? What ends a line also receives a pause. And so the reader is going to naturally sort of be drawn to the meanings of those words and those sounds at the end of lines. There you go. That's 10 minutes on line breaks. There are books written about how to break a line. If I can help as you break your poems into lines, please just let me know. And again, if you're somebody who's struggling, start with what you know, with what you've done already. Write a paragraph in prose. Just write even just a handful of sentences. Try to write something pretty, something descriptive. And then take that and break it into lines. And maybe do that, maybe break that same couple of sentences up 5, 6, 7 times, just to sort of play with different types of music, different types of emphasis of the lines, and see which combination of line breaks works best for you. All right, I'll be in touch. Good luck, y'all. If I can do anything for you, let me know.